What wouldn't a mother do for her children? And just how far would a mother go to keep her children safe? These are the questions we will be contemplating in today's case, but this time, the answer has a dark and disturbing twist you definitely won't see coming. This is Leonarda Cianciulli. She is the first known Italian female serial killer, and today, I will tell you a haunting story about making soap that might just turn your stomach. Welcome to True Stories, join the family, and let us explore some of the most interesting true crime stories. As always, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Now let's get into it. Leonarda was born on April 18, 1894, in Montello Avellino, and what was then known as the Kingdom of Italy. Like most serial killers, she had a tumultuous upbringing and a tragic conception. Her mother Amelia had been assaulted, and afterwards, she discovered that she was pregnant with Leonarda. In order to avoid ruin, her mother Amelia was forced to marry her attacker. Due to this dreadful circumstances of her conception, Amelia resented Leonarda and treated her terribly. Because of this, Leonarda and her mother had a turbulent relationship. Leonarda even attempted to take her own life on 2 separate occasions. The family lived in poverty, even when Amelia eventually remarried. Seeking to fix their financial issues, Amelia planned for Leonarda to marry a wealthy man who then would help to take care of the family as a whole. However, Leonarda disobeyed her mother's wishes and instead went to a teller. During this reading was told that she would marry and have children, but every single one of them would die young. Perhaps seeking reassurance against this miserable fate, Leonarda later also visited a Ramani who predicted her future by reading the lines on her palm. She was once again given a bleak prediction. When the Ramani told her, "In your right hand I see prison, in your left a criminal asylum," she felt that the predictions of her dark future was the result of her mother's curse. 4 years after marrying in 1921, Raphael and Leonarda moved away from her hometown and to the small town of Lauria, where her husband Raphael had grown up. For a while, they did well for themselves as they both found work. But in 1927, Leonarda was arrested and imprisoned for committing fraud. As soon as she was released, they moved to Lacedonia, where they were once again besieged by trouble. In 1930, the European earthquake destroyed their home, but they both survived. At last, they moved to the town of Correggio, and their luck appeared to finally be turning around. Leonarda flourished as she opened a small shop where she sold a variety of goods. So there she began telling her customers that she had special powers that could help their dreams to come true. Soon, she was a teller and highly respected one. People from across Correggio would come seeking her aid to help them manifest their deepest desires. Her life was still not without difficulty. She struggled through the loss of many children. Though she was pregnant a total of 17 times, she lost 3 children to miscarriages and 10 more died while they were still very young, mostly from a variety of illnesses. Was this Leonarda's mother's curse or the fortune teller's prediction coming true? Perhaps it was both. Only 4 of Leonarda's many children managed to survive past adolescence. This resulted in her becoming extremely protective of her remaining children, as any mother who had endured the heartbreaking losses of so many children would go to great lengths to protect her children. However, Leonarda took her love and determination much farther than many others would dare ever go. And it soon ventured to a place that was wicked and dark. She fiercely loved each of her 4 surviving children, but it seemed that she had a particularly soft spot in my heart for one of her sons, Giuseppe. He had become her favorite, and so, in 1939, when he told her that he was going to go join the Italian army, which was preparing for the beginning of World War II, she was devastated at the thought that he might never come home from the war. There was nothing she wouldn't do to try to keep Giuseppe from harm, and luckily for her, she knew exactly what to do. When the lonely Faustina, a 73-year-old lifelong spinster, sought Leonarda's aid to help her finally find a husband, she saw an opportunity to break her mother's curse and guarantee that Giuseppe would survive the ensuing war. She told Faustina that she had found her a suitable husband who lived in Poland, which is now modern-day Croatia. For her services, she was paid 30,000 lire, which was all of Faustina's life savings. Excited to have finally found someone suitable to marry, Faustina soon began writing letters to the man who would become her husband and even received some replies. But instead of celebrating the news, Leonarda convinced her to keep it a secret and not tell anyone. Little did Faustina know it was Leonarda who was writing the letters back to her, posing as her future husband. Faustina was encouraged to write to her family members in order to tell them that she had gone to Poland and convince them that everything was fine. When Faustina was packed to leave, with her gray hair dyed dark and her heart light, she met Leonarda at my shop, where they celebrated her new life with a drink. Faustina was never heard from again, but her concerned family members' minds were put at ease once they received letters written in her handwriting, explaining that she had left to finally get married. But still, no one could understand why she hadn't told them herself, or even bothered to say goodbye. Her shop was frequented by other women who, like Faustina, were seeking ways to make their dreams come true. Francesca, like Faustina, came to Leonarda for help to find another job, as the 55-year-old schoolteacher was feeling lonely in the small town. In exchange for 3,000 lire, she found her a wonderful job at the school for girls in northern Italy. Leonarda encouraged her to write postcards to her friends and family, which were sent just before she left. But she was not to tell anyone of the job until after she arrived. On September 5, 1940, Francesca was due to set off and begin her new job, but before she left she came to say goodbye to Leonarda one last time. An awful smell emanating from Leonarda's little store was occasionally reported by those living in the area. No one thought much of it at the time, no one would come close to imagining the depths of horror that occurred in my kitchen. Undeterred by the occasional terrible smell known to seep up from the floorboards of Leonarda's shop, Virginia came to visit Leonarda in the hopes of also finding a new job, just as Francesca had. Virginia was a former soprano singer and had even sung in famed opera house La Scala. But since then, she had fallen into a state of near poverty and was desperately seeking anything that would improve her situation in life. Leonarda worked her magic, though not for a small sum. She demanded 50,000, which was all the money Virginia had, but she had promised her a position as a secretary for an impresario in Florence, and Virginia would have paid anything for this opportunity. Just like with Christina and Francesco, Virginia was sworn to secrecy, but unlike the other women, she couldn't help but mention to a few people that she may have found a wonderful job with my help. On September 30, 1940, Virginia visited me one last time to just say thank you and goodbye. By this time, people had started to notice that some of the women in the town, particularly the older and unattached women, were disappearing after visiting Leonarda's shop. Though family members of the women had received letters from them after they first left, none could get in contact with them again, which many found concerning. Suspicious, Virginia's sister was especially skeptical of her incredible new job and that she had last seen Virginia entering Leonarda's house. She went to the superintendent of police to share her fears for the worst and to report Virginia missing. The superintendent of police began investigating and soon found Leonarda's ability to procure miraculous jobs and husbands. Very suspicious, the superintendent soon found evidence that appeared to indicate the three missing women were murdered, such as Leonarda selling off all three women's clothing and shoes. Because of this, Leonarda was arrested, but the superintendent wasn't convinced that an older woman could have committed murder alone. He suspected that Leonarda's favorite son Giuseppe must have also been involved. As soon as Leonarda realized that her son could go to jail, she admitted everything, killing Faustina, Francesca, and Virginia in the most horrible way. In order to save her son from any blame, she gave a detailed account of the crimes. When she had realized that he could die in the upcoming war, she believed that it was once again the curse coming to claim the lives of all of her children. In order to protect her much-loved son, there was only one thing she could do: human sacrifice. She knew that asking higher powers to preserve and protect her son would require a great sacrifice in exchange. This is why she sacrificed all three women in the hopes that it would ensure her son's survival. When her first victim Faustina had come to visit me one last time, she gave her a drugged glass of wine. She fell unconscious and she struck her with an axe, killing her before dragging her body into a closet. She collected Faustina's blood in a basin and began cutting up her body at 9 pieces. At her trial, she gripped the witness stand rail with oddly delicate hands and calmly set the prosecutor right on certain details. Her deep-set dark eyes gleamed with a wild, evil stare. In an official statement, Leonarda described Faustina's gruesome fate in detail. She said, "I threw the pieces into a pot, added 7 kilos of caustic soda, which I had bought to make soap, and stirred the mixture until the pieces dissolved in a thick dark mush that I poured into several buckets and emptied a nearby septic tank. As for the blood in the base, I waited until it coagulated and put it in the oven, ground and mixed it with flour, sugar, chocolate, milk, and eggs, as well as a bit of margarine. Then I knead all the ingredients together. I made lots of crunchy tea cakes and served them to the ladies who came to visit. Sometimes, Giuseppe and I also ate them." Francesca, the schoolteacher, was given the same horrible treatment on the night that she came to see Leonarda. Her body was also made into cakes that were sold in her shop. Virginia too came to the same dark and stomach-turning fate when she dared to visit Leonarda the night before she was meant to leave. Leonarda also drugged her wine and killed her with an axe. She also melted down parts of Virginia's body in order to create soap. Leonarda gave a sickening statement about Virginia's death, saying, "She ended up in the pot like the other two, her flesh was fat and white. When it had melted, I added a bottle of cologne, and after a long time on the boil, I was able to make some most acceptable creamy soap. I gave bars to neighbors and acquaintances, her cakes too were better. That woman was really sweet." While in prison, Leonarda decided to write memoirs where she included advice on how to turn parts of the human body into soap. It was titled, "An Embittered Soul's Confessions." Her trial was attended by ropes of people waiting for hours outside the courtroom just for the chance of getting a seat. However, there was still skepticism surrounding her ability to kill all three women despite her gruesome details of the crimes. In order to prove that she had committed the murders alone, without the help of her son or husband, she was taken to the morgue. Once there, she dissected a corpse and cut it into 9 pieces in under 12 minutes, which horrified and convinced the authorities, who witnessed that without a shadow of a doubt she committed the murder. She was found guilty and sentenced for about 30 years in prison and 3 years in an asylum, much like the Romani had predicted in her youth. She became known as the Soap-Maker of Correggio. The pot that she had used to boil her victims was donated to the Criminological Museum in Rome, where it can still be seen today. In 1970 she died of cerebral apoplexy while in the women's criminal asylum. Leonarda committed 3 atrocious murders, all in the hopes of keeping her sons safe during World War II. Giuseppe was able to survive the war that killed many. Was this unlikely survival because of his mother's human sacrifices?